and then get rid of that, you reckon I'll be right? All right, so let's go through these. As I said, I'll try and get a little bit of variety in there. I realise some are going to appeal to others more than some, but that's okay. Is organised sport suffering because children have found something better to do with their weekends? The question got asked over here straight away by Paulie. What's organised sport? Organised sport is quite simply what you guys and girls play on the weekend in terms of, your Peninsula Football League or your basketball tomorrow night. That is organised sport. We're actually a lucky country in some regards. The Americans don't play organised sport beyond college. In other words, if you're an old fart like me, who's well and truly out of college, they don't have organised sport too much. It's all just casual, hey, we'll meet a couple of mates and shoot some hoops. So organised sport is what we play on the weekend. So our hockey, our basketball, our netball, footy, cricket, whatever it might be. So the question is organised sport suffering because children have found something better to do with their weekends? Who's got a yes or a no out there? That's not Oscar to be the first one. Just for once this year, someone who's not Oscar to be the first one. Who's not Rochi? Hannah? So it is suffering. So socialising more, in what way? Okay. Sure. Socialising, family. Good. What else we got, team? Let's keep calling them out. So, is organised sport suffering because they've found something better to do? Clubs closing. Why are clubs closing? Fewer numbers. How are we going to find that out? Okay, this is the thing we need to start doing. Evidence. So, we need evidence, we need numbers. What clubs can we look at? What? Could look at Wallaroo Senior Colts. Let's go a little bit wider than perhaps York Peninsula. What could we be looking at? Maybe there's a point to start. Census data. Youth participation rates. So we could look at things like youth participation rates. In terms of clubs, we're not going to necessarily look at individual clubs. One club does not make a research paper. Right? We might start looking at wider organisations. So it might just be we look at junior netball numbers. On the Netball Australia website, we look at junior football numbers. We look at junior hockey. We look at youth participation rates just in general. How many of them are participating? Because some sports might be going up. What happens if the hockey numbers have increased? Does that mean we say, no, it's not suffering? No. It might just be one club. So we need to look at a multiple of clubs. Youth participation rates. Is organised sport suffering because children have found something better to do? Well, what else are they doing? You guys know your friends. What else are they doing on the weekend other than socialising? Playing games. What sort of games? Alrighty, so how do we show that kids are playing video games at home? Look at numbers. Look at numbers of what? Okay, usage. We could look at sales rates. How many PlayStations, how many Xboxes, how many whatever it might be have been sold? Compare 2010 to 2017. So we could look at sale rates. What else are people doing with their weekends? Partying. Right? So if they are partying, how can we show that they are partying? What's a stat we could look at? We're starting to get there. Alcohol consumption of underage students. So we could look at so all of a sudden, we've gone and done lots of research. We've found that game consoles have increased their rate of sale by 250% since 2010. We've gone and done some research and found the average age of consuming alcohol these days is now 14 compared to 16. So all of a sudden we're showing kids are playing video games, drinking. They're doing that more. We might also show, hey, the rates have fallen. Participation rates have fallen. What's another thing that we could look at? If kids aren't playing sport, what are they going to be doing? Could be that. They could be focusing on school. But if they're not being physically active, they're sitting around playing video games, what else is going to happen? Okay, so we then look at obesity rates. We can suddenly say, well, hey, the obesity rates have gone up. That's because kids aren't playing sport. Sport is suffering. Whereas on this side, we're saying no, right? It's not suffering. The numbers are still up. Have we had any new sporting clubs start in this local area? Like what? Oh, we've had women's footy. What else? KDNA's had a couple of teams added. What else have we had start up recently? It's been a bit of soccer start down at Moonta. So even just in our local area, right, sport has grown. So is it suffering? No. We look at new clubs. And that's just our area. We can go a little bit wider. What new clubs have started? So we're now starting to provide some evidence to say, no, it's not suffering. And when it comes to writing your essay, remember it's got to be that balanced argument. So we've got to make sure we provide both sides. So we're going to look at youth participation rates over here. We're going to look at new clubs. We're going to look at how many clubs we've got, what opportunities are available, and whether their rates have increased or decreased. Is there anyone else that had any other points they might want to throw up on that one?
I happen to know that some kids just don't like sports to begin with, but is that really apply? Like there's better things to do.
Well, you could, but we're saying, is sport suffering because kids have found something better to do? We're saying, well, no, they don't like it, so they don't necessarily found anything better to do. Look at what that better to do is. It might be, and I've got no idea here because I haven't researched it, might be the average age of AFL crowds is getting younger. Maybe parents are saying, you know what, we're not going to go play footy on the weekend, Ben. We'll go down and watch the Crows. That'd be a better option. Don't know. But we've now provided some options of what kids might be doing. It's our job to find the evidence. Now, what are the things I love writing on your topic test? Numbers. What do you reckon I'm going to love writing on these? I'm going to write that over and over and over. By evidence, I mean research it. Let's find some stats. Let's find some data. Okay. Unless there's any others about that, because I want to try and get through all of these in the same sort of depth. Should transgender athletes such as Hannah, I don't even know how to pronounce her last name, Mouncey, be allowed to participate in competitions such as the AFLW? So for those of you not in the know, Hannah was applied for the AFL women's draft this year and was not allowed to participate in the draft. So in other words, she wasn't allowed to be picked up by any AFLW club. Hannah was or is a man, whichever way you want to look at it, and is beginning the process of transforming from a man to a woman. Now, the AFLW has argued at this point, since that process is not complete, should not be allowed to participate in the league. Some people have come up, jumped up and down and said this is not fair. And since then, Hannah has been granted permission to play in the Victorian Football League. So you've got the AFL, it would then be the next step down, same as that SANFL. So you'd go AFL, SANFL, and then you're going down to, if you like, country football sort of thing. So, question, Should transgender athletes such as Hannah be allowed to participate in competitions such as the AFLW? Yes or no, Hannah?
Well, since it's like the process has been completed for her, she also has her original strength and her original structure of a man, which can be harder on the women.
So you're saying yes or no? No?
No. That's when like the whole transformation's been completed.
Still genetically a man. So in other words, you're saying still genetically a man. What does that then mean? We need to find some evidence to show. Okay, now we're starting to get there. Nothing's ordinary. Testosterone.
Muscle mass.
Okay, testosterone leads to muscle mass. So, okay, we can put that in there as well. So we've got testosterone, which got muscle mass. What does that then all mean? What? Okay, so we can now say unfair. Greater strength. What else could it lead to?
Injuries to female players.
Hey, now we're starting to play that off health and safety card. There's one thing that'll always get people on side. Oh, we could get hurt. Let's not do anything. Okay? So, could lead to injuries. So we're now saying, you know what? She shouldn't be allowed. Still genetically a man. These are the physical differences. These physical differences could lead to, being able to kick the ball further due to greater muscle mass. These physical differences could mean not allowed to play because you're able to generate more power in a tackle, possibly hurt someone. What's the arguments to saying yes, Hannah should be allowed to play?
She can't really go into the men's league at the moment.
Can't play AFL, and by that I'm going with AFL as in the men's AFL. Can't play AFL. Why else should we allow Hannah to play?
Could be good publicity for AFLW.
Could be good publicity for AFLW. What else could it be? Good in terms of?
Role model.
Bam. Suddenly we've got great role model. So to any other boys and girls out there that might be going through a similar process, suddenly have someone like that you can look up to and go, you know what, I'm feeling exactly the same things Hannah felt. That she was able to get to where she wanted to be. Could be a great role model. Absolutely. Why else are we going to say yes, she should be allowed to play? What's the key word I just said there? Why else should she be allowed to play? Identifies as female. So, we could use that as a point. Now, if you were going to tackle this topic, what's something that you would try and do to support arguments either side? Find an example from somewhere else. Australia is young in its sports, particularly male sports that we've turned into female sports. America is so much further in front. WNBA sells out well. The Women's National Basketball League. Association, sorry. So, have a look at other examples from other sports. Try and find, hey, where am I going to write that there? Try and find examples from other leagues. So quite simply, if you could find a male athlete that has gone through the transgender process into the female, and they're competing in a league. If you can find an example of that, chances are that article is going to have points as to why it was a good idea or points as to why it was a bad idea. But you can use that. You can say, whoever it be, Wendy in the WNBA went through a similar process, right? So you can certainly use that. Enough on that one, we think? Okay, are sporting bodies removing the characters of sport, issuing suspensions for misdemeanours? So we sort of started roughly on this one. Question was asked over here, are we talking about the match review panel in the AFL suspending people? Possibly, not really. Those of you that are up to speed at the moment. Katie Brennan. Who's Katie Brennan? Western Bulldogs AFLW captain. They've got the AFLW grand final on the weekend. Katie's the Bulldogs captain. Bulldogs are in it, and she's not playing. She's been suspended. Some would say for a very minor on-field misdemeanour. So she's having to miss the biggest game of her career because she's laid a hard tackle. So we could use that as an example. The other example we spoke about was the Test cricket at the moment. Said fast bowler got Steve Smith out, and as he went past, all charged up, going, "Yeah, I'll let you know about it." Bumped shoulders with him. Got suspended for 2 games. Suspension has since been overturned. But there's a couple of examples. Did anyone have any points that they wanted to raise on that one?
The Kate Brennan situation, the AFL, the men's AFL is cutting out most of its tackles, and that's the tackle we're going to do in the AFL. Right or wrong, it's a decision that the league made to cut down.
So you're saying, no, we're not. We're looking at player safety.
Yeah.
Sure. Said that safety aspect is always going to fly in an argument. What are some other arguments?
Yeah, as well.
What?
If you get someone out to do something well, you let them know about it. It's part of sport. You might be the best role model, but you want to have kids have passion for their sport. So I argue that it's a good role model.
So, over here, are sporting bodies removing characters of a game? Right. We could argue, no, they're not. They're increasing the level of role models. So we can say, hey, here are some examples of athletes behaving badly. They got suspended or got removed from the game, whoever it might be. It might be an NBA player who's been suspended. Did anyone end up getting, did CP3 end up getting suspended for going into the Clippers dressing rooms? Might be something like that, where someone has done something quite inappropriate, threatened to belt someone after a game, snuck in the back door of the change rooms. Well, that's a role model. We want children to know that that's not acceptable. So no, they're not removing the characters of the game. They're trying to tidy it up. They're trying to improve the level of role models.
Was that a misdemeanor? You can classify that over a misdemeanor.
You could. Misdemeanor is a very vague term, hence why I put it in there, so you could put in quite a number of examples.
Can you do it like outside of sports? So say an AFL star kind of goes out on a bender and like
There's the issue earlier with the domestic violence.
You could look at that, but where we want to go is suspensions. We're talking about suspensions. So if they end up with trouble in the law and go to jail, not going to apply here. Right? Because we're looking at league or club imposed suspensions.
What about the league taking a stance on that? They get a gross suspension for different things.
If someone's going to end up in jail for 6 months, I don't think they're going to care that their club's suspended them for 6 games. So let's try and stick with just those. So we've got, no, they're not removing characters. They're looking after player safety. No, they're not removing characters. All right, they're trying to improve role models.
With the role model one, you could find evidence about children watching more sport.
Okay, like where your head's going with that. So he's going to say, in other words, let's look at the number of children that are actually watching sport these days. The average hours of kids watching sport aged 10 to 18 is 12 hours a week. Well, that's a lot of exposure to a lot of athletes. They see them misbehaving. Right? They see them misbehaving. They then think that's appropriate. How many little kids do you watch playing cricket these days that try and do those stupid ramp shots? Because that's what they've seen on TV. So yes, they do watch that. But these characters of the games, what do?
Growing popularity for leagues.
They're popular, and what do popular athletes do? What matters more than safety? Cha-ching. They put bums on seats. They put bums on seats. Paddy Dangerfield leaves Adelaide, goes to Geelong. What's the AFL going to do in terms of the fixture? Of course, they are going to make Geelong play Adelaide in Adelaide. Why? Because 50,000 Idiot Crow supporters are going to go along and boo him every time he tries to get a touch. So he's a character of the game. So we don't want to suspend them for little misdemeanors. We want them to be out there because they sell. Any other points on that one, or is that good? Sorry? Could go either way with that. So you could say, do we want to remove these characters? Well, no, we don't want to remove them because we love the publicity that they give us. Or we could say, yes, we do want to remove them. Oh.
Chris Gale, when he said,
Baby don't blush.
yeah, that's
The publicity could go either way. Leagues are so worried about protecting their image that they don't want any bad press these days, which is why they'll quite often drop an athlete and say, no, we're not going to support you anymore, because they're bringing bad publicity. For example, Chris Gale, probably the best T20 player going around. Who did he play for this year in the Big Bash? Everyone was that afraid to go anywhere near him because of the publicity it might bring. All right, moving on. Last one. Would the AFL be better off for having a mid-year draft? Mid-year draft, mid-year trade. So what happens at the moment, I wonder if that's really annoying on the video, putting those textures down. What's going on at the moment, AFL has a trade period at the end of the year. So at the end of the year, we've finished playing. Okay, we weren't good enough because we don't have any ruckman. Righto, we want to try and get a big ruckman. So what they say is, you know what, we'll give you Veno and Hobbsy, you give us your ruckman. What happens in American sports, a lot of the American sports, the NBA, the NHL, they are allowed to trade right up until about a month before the finals start. So the AFL's been debating this. Should we be allowed to trade mid-year? So let's look at the Adelaide Crows once again. How many ruckmen do the Adelaide Crows have? Generous. One. Big Sauce Jacobs. So if Big Sauce Jacobs, first game tomorrow night, goes up for the tap, rolls his ankle, and wish it upon him, he's a good Yorks boy, rolls his ankle, breaks his ankle, and he's out for the year, the Crows are down a ruckman and probably going to struggle. So what do they have to do for the year? Struggle. Whereas if we had trade periods right up until midway through the year, what would the Crows do? We'll give you our number one draft pick for your ruckman. So that's what the proposal is. At the moment, the AFL, what list you've got in January is the list you've got for the entire year till we get through to October. And then we've got a small period there in October where we can basically draft and trade. Whereas the NBA is saying, you know what, you can go right up to a month before the finals start, make as many changes as you want. And what the NBA is doing is, they're going, well, you know what, we've got an old bloke on the roster who's 32, we're not going to make the playoffs, let's try and get a draft pick for him, so we don't have to have him again next year. So, What are some thoughts in terms of should the AFL have a mid-year trade, yes or no?
Yeah, it should. If you're going to have players that aren't going to play because you've got depth at that position, you've got a weakness in another, why wouldn't you? Like, everyone wins. You get a player, gets more time, teams get better.
So you're saying if you've got 6 ruckmen, why shouldn't you be allowed to trade them off and get some value for them? Sure. What's another argument? Yes or no?
Injuries can happen. You don't have to have a great backup plan, but you're going to have to at this point because the risk of rock
Injury. So it provides insurance. So in other words, I said, big source jacket as the ruckman goes down. Oh, our entire season's wasted. We don't have a ruckman. No, that's not the case. Let's package up our draft picks. Let's go get a good ruckman. So it could provide insurance. Why wouldn't you want to do it?
job security.
What do you mean?
Well, in the NBA, you can get released midway through a contract, whereas if you just do it in the AFL, you release for 4 years job security. You get traded, but you just match salary, you're going to get cut. So you're going to be without a job.
Job security. So it could be moved off.
Keep the teams will recognise it.
What do you mean by that?
Well, someone might be going to growth to like a big player or something, and then if that player gets traded for the season,
Okay.
might be good for the
So-
team.
Could be disappointing for fans. So all those Adelaide Crows fans that had the number 32 on their back for Patrick Dangerfield, suddenly he gets traded to Geelong, all those kids are upset and devastated. Could be, as Roachy said, teams more recognisable. There are definitely blokes in the NBA that you can't keep up with what club they're at. One week they're here, next week they're there, they're here. One bloke in the NHL just a few weeks ago got transferred from Montreal to Nashville. He was literally at Nashville for 1 minute. He didn't actually physically go there. And then before it know it, he was back at Boston. So what's that going to mean in terms of your family? A lot of moving around. What's the impact on that?
Very expensive.
Could. Suddenly you go from Adelaide, quite an affordable city, to all of a sudden you're living in Sydney. Quite expensive. Perth, very expensive. What's the other downside to you moving around a lot?
Lots of training time.
Could be that. Now we're starting to get there. So it could be families, children. You suddenly think, hey, you're halfway through a year at school and mum and dad say, you know what, we're packing up, we're moving over to Perth. Can't be easy.
It also cause conflict between clubs.
Possibly. Could be conflict. Uncertainty.
Have back injuries in the team.
Okay.
Bring a whole bunch of new players.
Improve standards, chemistry, fresh start. Now, who currently does all this? American sports. We've got up here, try and find example of other leagues. So NBA, NHL, they've all got it going on at the moment. Find examples. And you'll be able to find examples where blokes have been traded, it's been the best thing ever, and their stats have improved, and they've said, I've loved this, and they've got a championship, great. You'll probably be able to find examples of blokes, as I just said, that have gone from 3 cities in the space of 2 minutes going, I don't know where I am. There are some guys that have been in a city for 10 years, they get traded off, and they go, you know what, the wife and kids stay there, I'm just going to move on by myself. So they don't upset the family. Suddenly it's a very lonely lifestyle. Now, I'm not proclaiming to have given you all the answers there. If that works any better, a little bit. But what we've got is our for and against points there. And you've got to start thinking about, well, which one do I reckon I'm going to tackle? Who's thinking about the first one? You're not locked in, I'm just curious. Second one, who's going to go with transgender? Couple. Who's looking at the third one? And who's going down the bottom? And who's still got absolutely no idea? Like the honesty. Right? So, if I hold that there, where's my video?